am the adventure. This is all the places that I went. As a middle-aged, overweight woman, I don't think I represent your typical paddler, and I did not paddle at all as a child. My parents divorced when I was 4 years old, and my mother had an irrational fear of sharks, so she kept us out of the water. And I'm sure you're wondering what coast I grew up in. I grew up in Milwaukee, because fun fact, the bull shark can survive being in fresh water, so we just didn't do anything in the water. So because I didn't do those things as a child, when I got married and had kids of my own, I didn't do that with my family. I got divorced in 2010, and a couple of years later, I started dating a guy who would paddle with his family. Now, we live in southeastern Wisconsin, so that means things like the Root River and the Fox River, and he was trying to convince me that I wanted to go with him. And I really didn't think that it was anything that I needed to see. But I do enjoy taking photographs, and he was trying to tell me I'd get a different perspective, and I'd see things that I wouldn't normally see, and he bought himself an 8-foot recreational plastic kayak. To give you an idea, that is the lovely Root River in Racine. Isn't it spectacular? It's not really a destination paddle, right? So I didn't want to invest in this and buy a boat of my own if it was not something I was going to enjoy or something that was going to be boring. So to help persuade me to go with him, his brother was going to give him a 12-foot sports kayak. And he was going to take me with him. He finally convinced me to join him in August of 2017. I was 38 years old. So he puts me in the 8-foot plastic recreational kayak, pushes me into the Root River, tells me paddle forward, stay up. The 12-foot racing kayak that he was going to use, he's Midwestern size, so he actually had to cut the opening a little bigger to fit into the kayak. And then he didn't do a test paddle in it. He waited until he got me in the river to try it out himself. He found out that if he wasn't paddling that, he was spinning down the river like this. So to give you an idea of what that looked like, that was him in the kayak. And this is pretty much what I saw my entire first paddle. Him paddling away from me because he couldn't stop paddling, and I'm in this plastic recreational kayak that's not going to keep up with that. He did find some places where he could stop and wait for me to join him, but then as soon as he got going again, that's what I saw. Or he was running into me because he couldn't really control the kayak. So it wasn't a great first experience. I did get to see a great blue heron fly across the river. Now, it's not the greatest photo because I didn't trust myself with the camera, so that is a screenshot of my GoPro. I just thought, wow, that was pretty cool to see. Maybe I do want to go on some kayaking trips. This is typically what I look like when I paddle, because I am not made for the sun or the heat. The quickest I have ever burned is in 10 minutes. Again, that is Racine, Wisconsin. That is not someplace tropical. I do not handle the sun very well. I don't handle the heat very well, because back in 2001, my lung collapsed on me and I just had trouble breathing in temperatures like that. So I have found sun protective clothing, and that is a lot easier to do when you're in a boat than reapply sunscreen like every half hour or every hour. So that is actually my small floppy hat. I want a larger one that keeps me covered more. And then I will actually wear gloves when I paddle to help protect me. So to help us go on more trips together, Chet actually invested in a larger kayak, a 10-foot kayak, and it was a recreational kayak, so we'd be better paired up and we could paddle together. We had planned a camping trip with friends where we were going to go on a kayak paddle, and our friends got there and they didn't bring their kayaks. So Chet generously let us go out by ourselves. That is my friend in the sports kayak, because she is a much better paddler than I am. And her daughter took the 8-foot kayak, so I got to sit in Chet's new kayak and paddle that around. And we spent maybe an hour out there paddling around, and I was so excited after paddling this one, I told him, I'm going to buy one of my own. And I did. So my 10-foot recreational kayak, it's 45 pounds though, and all of my strength is in my legs and very, very weak arms. So I can't put it on my car by myself, I can't take it off my car by myself, can't get it down to the launch by myself, but I can paddle in it. And I did, and I got to see cool things like this. We were at Mirror Lake, and I got to see a muskrat all up close and personal. This duck came to me. I do not go and chase after wildlife. Paddled over to me, and when I wasn't feeding her, she swam away. We refer to these as the pod people that we see in Mirror Lake. It's not. It's a group of organisms that live together. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but Chet was kind of right. I was seeing some cool stuff that I wouldn't necessarily see if I wasn't on the water. And of course, you can see this gorgeous stuff when you go to Mirror Lake, but you get a much better view when you're in the water. End of 2018, and my friend's husband starts talking about, you know what you really want to go do? You want to go see the Boundary Waters. It is an experience that you can make as easy or as hard as you want to. You plan your own trip. He had done it when he was 20, and he's like my age, so that was about 20 years ago at that time. But we wouldn't want to do it in kayaks. That would be way too much trouble portaging and hauling and repacking and unpacking. We would need a canoe. So Chet says, hey, my dad has a 17-foot aluminum canoe. It's 90 pounds. We can do this. 2017 was my first time on kayak. I've never been in a canoe. And we wanted to plan a September 2019 trip, so I've got 6 months. So my friend's husband says, hey, Canoecopia happens in March. So March 2019, we get up Canoecopia. As a new paddler, when you don't know anything, you don't even know what to ask. This is so overwhelming. The only thing I learned is that I might not be prepared. So late March 2019, we actually did our first paddle in the canoe. We were at Lawrence Pond in central Wisconsin. Now that is a lake that they dammed up and kind of made into a pond. So my first paddle in the canoe, it was 37 degrees and there were wind gusts up to like 20 miles an hour. It was not ideal, but you know, I've got 6 months to get ready. So yeah, we get in the boat, we paddle around. Now they've dammed this area up, so there's still trees and tree stumps to avoid. So it was a great first paddle. We went several more times, had all our stuff packed in there, made sure that we could paddle together, make sure that we could fit our stuff in the boat, make sure that we could do this. And we made it. So second week of September, we launched at the Poplar Public Boat Launch. It is 40 degrees and raining. On the first portages, Chet did the first 2 all by himself, 63 rods and 68 rods. It was super painful. He did a 90-pound boat and a 50-pound pack. I don't know how he did it, but he said it was not sustainable and I needed to help him after that. So, okay, fine, great, I can do that for you. He was in the front of the boat, I was in the back of the boat, and I helped him until he dragged me over a rock, and then I rescinded my offer. So it was the gentleman that carried the boat, that is Chet in the front, my friend's husband in the back, and that is their boat in the corner. It is a 95-pound composite canoe that they use to fish in southeastern Wisconsin, so no better than our canoe. It was double portaging for the rest of the trip. The gentleman took the canoes, and my friend and I took the packs. This is a really good representation of every day that we were up there. It was 40 degrees and rain when we put in, and it is pretty much what it was for the rest of the time there. We had 5 days and 4 nights of our trip planned like this. The very last day of our trip, we had planned to get up, pack up, 4 portages, and we're out. By the time that we got to the parking lot, it was 70 degrees and sunny. So this photo was taken on the second day of our trip. The first campsite that we were at, we actually spent 2 days at because we were all so miserable and wet, we didn't want to move anymore. Yes, that is firewood on top of the fire. In addition to the 4 days that it rained while we were there, it had rained a week prior and there was no wood that would burn until we dried it first. We also threw our gloves and our socks on the rocks to try and get some sort of comfort back into our life. But even with all this misery, we decided that we wanted to go again. We were just never ever going to take up an aluminum canoe or anything that way again. So on our way home from the Boundary Waters, we stopped at Rutabaga and started looking at canoes. And by the time I sat in that third one, the Swift Key Wade, I didn't want anything else. That seat was so comfortable, that's what we wanted. It was nearing the end of season, so we put it down, came it down, and the next week we picked it up because we were camping at Newport State Park. That is at the tip of Door County. We had a primitive campsite, they're all primitive there. Our campsite was 1.25 miles from the parking lot. Yes, he is wearing his 50-pound pack in this picture. He is also carrying our 42-pound canoe. I just have my backpack, the paddles, and the food bag. And we were able to do it pretty easy. No stopping, no resorting things, no having to drop stuff off, pick it up later. It was amazing, even with obstacles. He was able to clear that with the canoe and his backpack. So after realizing how much better this canoe was, I got to thinking, well, my 10-foot kayak really isn't good enough because I can't lift it, I can't pick it up, I can't take it to the launch, I can't put it on my car. I really was getting excited for Canoecopia 2020 so I could go sit in a Swift kayak and check out how much better that might be. September 2019 and March of 2020, Canoecopia is going to come again, and I'm going to be able to sit in something and check it out and really see what they have to offer. And we all know what happened in March of 2020, so I couldn't try it out. But I was telling Chet, hey, I really want to Swift kayak, I really want to Swift kayak. And he was trying to tell me, no, you really don't want a pack boat. The difference between a kayak and a pack boat is that the pack boat is open on the top. I can still get my comfortable kayak seat at the back, I can still get my kayak foot braces, but I have an open top where I can reach my snacks and my drinks and my camera and everything that I need, and I can put my gear in there. So I ended up ordering a pack boat. This is a 12.6, the length on it, and it is 26 pounds. I can lift this boat. I can put it on my vehicle. I can take it off my vehicle. I can portage this boat. I was so happy. I ordered it in, I don't know if it was March or April timeframe, and I picked it up on August 1st at Rutabaga in Madison, and my first trip with it was at Lake Kaganza. Now, I didn't take my camera out on the boat with me because I was pretty nervous about tipping and getting it in the water. So I got this picture after I made it back to the launch, an osprey in his nest that was right near the parking lot. Thought that was pretty cool. I had also heard that Pike Lake was doing a moonlit paddle that same day. So from Lake Kaganza, we went over to Pike Lake, got a really nice sunset paddle in, and then a moonlit paddle. I know that's not the greatest photo, that's screen captured from a GoPro, but it was very cool to have that first experience in my boat, be that sunset moonlit paddle. Another place that I really love going that's close to us is the Illinois Fox River. This particular launch is at Big Bend, and it's a slow enough moving river where you could paddle upriver or you could float downriver, so you go up to Big Bend or you can float down to Michigan. There is so much beautiful wildlife. I am not looking for excitement, I'm not looking for rapids. I want to be able to enjoy my time on the water, get my wonderful pictures of the beautiful wildlife and see things. With these new boats, we had kind of wanted to redo our Boundary Waters trip and try and see how much did it improve our lives, how much could it improve for us. So we wanted to go into the same entry point, we wanted to go the same time frame, we wanted to go and try and hit the same campsites and really compare how much better would it be with appropriate gear. The problem was that our friends had gotten rid of their canoe, but due to COVID had not gotten a new canoe. So Chet and I started thinking, is it possible for us to do this in our pack boats? So we tried. We launched in the Racine Harbor. This is Labor Day, so a week before we were supposed to go. We put all our gear in the pack boats and we paddled up the Root River a little bit, came back down the Root River. Was feeling like, yes, I think I can handle this. As we're getting back to the launch, I went like sideways in my boat. Gust of wind took me. I didn't get any water in the boat, didn't manage to, I saved myself from capsizing, and I kind of felt a little more confident, like, yeah, I can do this. And we did. So here we are in 2020, in September, launching at the Poplar Lake Public Launch. They are in our canoe. Chet has his solo boat, a 15.8 cruiser. I have my 12.6 pack boat. One of the very first things that I got to see was a moon fishing. I thought, wow, was that cool? This is already a better trip than it was last year. I can't believe I got to see that. Can't believe I got to capture that with my camera. And then she goes to feed her baby, and I have that on camera too. Wow, this is an amazing trip. So we get to the first portage, and I have my 26-pound boat. I have my 50-pound pack, and I realize I can't do it. I have very little cartilage remaining on my left knee, and it was super painful to step up with that much extra weight. So the plan was we were going to single portage everything. It was going to be so much better. New plan, I'm going to be the first one out of the boats and start my double portage, and everybody else can single portage. And by the time that I get back to them, it should equal out because I do walk faster than most of my friends. So that's what we did for the rest of the trip, and there wasn't too much waiting around for me. It did kind of line up well. What a world of difference this trip was. This is from that campsite where we were all huddled underneath the tarp. We got a beautiful sunset that night. Had the camera there again in the morning. Nice mist on the lake there. It was absolutely beautiful. We actually saw some wildlife on this trip. There are animals up there. And we saw skies, we saw stars because it wasn't raining every day. It was a completely different experience. This particular picture was taken on Winchell Lake, which is where we spent our second night. So the third day, we're on our way to Pillsbury Lake, and we did get some rain. Very brief rain shower while we were paddling. Got this cool picture of the hawk there on the lake. I don't like to cook, so when we're up in the boundary waters, it is dehydrated meals and we throw water in. So we get to our Pillsbury campsite, heat up some water, throw it in our food bags, and somebody says, "Hey, is that a moose?" Yes it was. So across the lake, down from our campsite, was a moose that had come into the water, and then her calf comes to join her. So we completely forgot about our food. We could have been having dinner and a movie, but completely forgot about it. Just sat there watching them. Right next to our campsite was like this little trickle of water, so there was a lot of mud, and there was a lot of sign of moose. So I have a feeling she really just wanted to cross the lake and get across. But we were in her way, and eventually they got bored and they just wandered back to where they had come from. When I got home from that trip, I did put it in my Excel sheet how long it took us to get across each lake, how long it took us to do each portage, so that I could prove to people that we had a better trip this year. Even with me being the slowest paddler, even with me having to double portage, we still improved our time, an hour and a half on paddling and 5.5 hours on portaging. So, my gosh, does the right gear help. I'm sure you recognize what is arguably Wisconsin's most popular state park, Devil's Lake. In all the time that I had hiked and camped and been there, I had never paddled the lake, so we had an absolutely wonderful October day. It was, great colors. It was like 70 degrees. It was a mild wind. It was forecast to be like 5 miles an hour, so like we got the boats, we could do this, let's do the lake. We launch, and everything's going fine until it wasn't. Again, these are captures from my GoPro. I wasn't pulling the camera out. About a third of the way across the lake, and the waves start rolling, and they are awful. This is probably the most difficult paddle I have ever done. For those of you that know, the lake kind of narrows in the middle, and there are bluffs on either side. It's like a wind tunnel through there. So I was really glad to have had my splash guard over my boat, because the nose of the boat did go under a couple times. But we made it to the end of the lake, as fast as I felt comfortable paddling, as close to the shore as I could without getting smashed into the rocks. I really felt like if I had tried to turn around, I would have been sideswiped and swimming. So it was just, we'll make it to the end, hike back to get the car. I can say now I've paddled Devil's Lake and I don't have to do it again. So on the Root River in 2021, much more wildlife this time. I got to see some cool ducks in the trees, disturbed some ducks in the mud there, got to see them waddle away. There was a green heron that was really strutting around on some of the down trees there. We got to see this turkey walking through our park there. And then we come upon this domestic dispute. There are 2 of them in this photo, and we kind of stopped paddling long enough to hear them arguing, and then one of them threw the other one into the water, and then we started paddling again. So I get up to this bend, and I see all of these nests. And I don't know if I'm just not a bird person. I never knew that the great blue heron has its nest in the tree. It's a water bird. Why would it have a nest in the tree? And why is this in like downtown Racine? This is one of the coolest things I ever got to capture. And I actually submitted this photograph for a Wisconsin photographers exhibit, and it was shown in the Racine Art Museum. So I'm pretty proud of that. But it was so awesome to see that and to be able to capture that from where we were. In June of 2021, we did get up to the iconic Canoecopia River. I still want to camp there. We've never camped on the river, but we were able to paddle it. Chet's family was camping in Trigo, and they invited us to come up with them and paddle. Again, I am not a fast paddler. I don't like the excitement. I don't want the rapids. I don't want any of that. I want time to see the wildlife and take my photos. So this was a really low water year, and the flow was pretty slow, so I got to see my wildlife. I got to paddle nicely, a nice little fawn there. We did get to watch this guy fish. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of him fishing, but he does have a fish in his talon in that photo. So we paddled the Canoecopia on a Saturday, and then they wanted to do the Boy Rule River on a Sunday. Now that is a notably fast river, and I was feeling pretty uncomfortable going down this. But we had such low levels of water and the flow was supposed to be so good that the route that they had chosen was only going to give me one potential class 2 rapids. So there was enough people with us. We had 3 cars, the one at the put-in, the one at the takeout, and then we had another one in the middle in case I was uncomfortable and I wanted to bail. So we were fortunate enough that there weren't a whole lot of branches or trees or other debris in the river, so we really didn't have to watch out for anything. This is about the worst of it. However, there were a bunch of rocks in the river that we did have to watch out for. And one of our crew actually did suffer a boat casualty that we were able to patch up with some duct tape. But I survived, I made it through, I even made it through the potential class 2 rapids. My boat certainly has more character on the bottom of it now, but it was a great experience. Again, I don't know that I'd want to do it again, but I have that experience now. This is in Deer River, Minnesota. So friends of mine had been going to this resort up there for decades. I mean, their family has probably been going now for like a century, and they invited us one year. So it's on like a chain of lakes. This particular one was Moose Lake, and right next to that large beaver house there is the path in the reeds that we're gonna go get to the next lake. So there we are paddling through there. Just all these cool things now that I've done because I can go out in the water and see these things. And this is again to another one of those chain of lakes, but we did have to cross some beaver dams. The boats are light enough where I am comfortable being able to lift it, and I can lift it. I'm very weak, but I still can lift my boat up, and it is stable enough. Nobody would ever describe me as being graceful, but I can stand in this boat and not tip myself over. So that's fantastic. One of my favorite state parks to camp in is Brunei State Park. It is on the Chippewa and Fisher Rivers. It's Brunei Island. It is an island completely surrounded by the water. You probably see a tent in this one. A lot of the northern campground has access to the water, so you could launch directly from your campsite. And if you wanted to paddle the rivers, you are more than welcome to, but there's enough backwaters there that if you were not happy with river traffic, you could stick in the backwaters and paddle around and see stuff like this that we caught. I don't know that I will have the opportunity to see that again. Our first paddle in 2022, it was not supposed to snow, right? So this is April 1st. This is Wind Lake Canal. It just connects Wind Lake and Big Muskego Lake down in Muskego. It's someplace that we like to go to if we can't necessarily get out on Big Lake because the weather conditions aren't right for it. It's close to home, it's kind of protected from the wind, and it's kind of shallow. We just wanted to get out and paddle because it had been a long winter. We just wanted to go somewhere. It was not supposed to snow. We're getting our boats into the water and it starts snowing. This is one of my favorite photos that I have ever taken. I absolutely love this. I don't try to let bad weather keep me from paddling. In my mind, bad weather is sun. If it's gonna rain, that's fine. I will wear a rain jacket. I will change my clothes when I get home. It's not gonna stop me from paddling. What's going to stop me from paddling is lightning, thunder, and winds. I will not paddle in those conditions. This is one of my favorite places in central Wisconsin to paddle. This is McCann Springs. As the name implies, there's a bunch of springs rolling off the hills in there, and there's actual springs in the water. The photo was taken in June, and this was when we were going to attempt to go down the McCann River, which is supposed to be a really good beginner river. Now, this is the headwaters of the McCann River, and I think they're probably talking about a different section when they say it's good for beginners, because when we went in 2022, there were so many downed trees. I was in and out of my boat more than I was actually paddling my boat. We had planned to go from the headwaters to Highway 21, but we bailed a little early and then walked back and got the boats. I have had the ability to watch a couple of birds fish. This particular photo was taken in Island Lake in Minnesota. I have seen eagles fishing, I have seen osprey fishing, I have seen others. It is an incredible thing to see and watch. There were a pair of eagles here. There were several unsuccessful attempts, and then they did eventually catch something. Very cool to be able to see it from that view. In 2023, I did buy another boat because, as I mentioned, my partner is a lot larger than I am, a lot stronger than I am, and trying to paddle and not feel like I'm making him wait for me or exhausting myself trying to keep up with him. This is a cruiser, so it's a much faster boat, so I'm not exerting so much energy. It's still 26 pounds, I can still lift it up and put it on my vehicle and take it off my vehicle and take it where I need to go, but it is much better suited for paddling with him. Our first paddle in 2024 was at Lake Columbia. Those of you that know, there is a power plant in Portage, and they use that lake for a cooling lake, so the temperature in that lake is 70 degrees. It was January, that's why there's all this fog, because the air temperature is a lot different. I was there testing out a dry suit, because again, if you live in Wisconsin, you have maybe 6 months of paddling, and I want to paddle more, and I want to do so safely. So I didn't necessarily need the dry suit in this water, but I preferred to test it out when I didn't need it, rather than need it and not have it. So we wanted to make the boundary waters like an annual thing, so we were back there in 2024. This is a fishing spider, fisher spider. I love spiders. This was fantastic. When we got to our campsite and I saw that this guy was at our campsite, I was ecstatic. First day in, get to take this photo. He's at our campsite, and I spent probably 20 minutes taking photos of this guy. I was so excited. This is like the size of the palm of your hand. The first time I got to see this spider was at Rock Island State Park, and it was on our tent. So I get up in the morning, I open the door, I must have been way too excited, so I knocked him off, and he lands on my shoulder. They're completely harmless to humans, but I was so excited to see him at our campsite when we got there. We camped on an island, and I thought, okay, what else is on this island? What else can I go find? I walked to the back of the island, and there's a moose. You know, first day here, like how does that happen? And then out comes her calf, and the calf was out there for maybe 10 minutes before it got bored and it walked back to the mainland, but the cow was out there for probably 45 minutes. So sitting here taking photos, watching what she's gonna do, we think this is gonna be the highlight of our trip. So we were base camping. The next day we were out for a day trip. We get onto Pillsbury Lake, and I sneeze, and Chet sees movement on the shore, right? So, like, I can't believe that we caught this. Thankfully, he didn't take my sneeze as any kind of threat. I do feel like Chet paddled me way closer than I needed to be, and he eventually got bored and just wandered back up onto shore. That was the highlight of our 2024 trip. The chain of lakes in Wapaka is a wonderful, wonderful place to paddle. It's like 20-some lakes. Some of them are no-wake lakes, and some of them are motorized, and they're like heavily motorized. I stick to the no-wake lakes. They're all going to be beautiful wherever you're paddling. Beautiful sandhill cranes that I got on that. We were paddling up Beasley Creek, and I noticed a little weasel along the shore there, and then I noticed he was snagging on his fish. I caught this great blue heron fishing with these geese, and again, just wonderful things that I get to photograph because I went in the water. I did a solo paddle at Long State Recreational Area in 2025. The Wolf Lake there is like on a bird migration route, so there's always cool things to see there. This particular blue heron was on somebody else's nest, checking out the eggs that were there, and then I saw a white bird, and I thought, okay, that's an egret, and I'm like, no, that looks like a pelican. Why is a pelican in Kenosha County? I am so glad I got it on photograph, but I had no idea the pelican was that large of a bird. I know the size of a great blue heron, but seeing it next to the great blue heron, that is a huge bird, and that is a stocky bird. Just amazing. That was the highlight of my 2025 paddling, and you know, people can't say that I'm crazy because that is a pelican, and that was in Kenosha County. We also camped in the Kickapoo Valley Reserve in 2025. We have paddled this river several times. It is an absolute gem to paddle. Most of the time when we're paddling, we would get in Bridge 1, Ontario, and then we would get out at Bridge 4 or 5, depending on how long we wanted to spend on the water. This particular time, since we were camping at Site S, we got in at Wildcat Mountain State Park, and we paddled down to Site S. For those of you that don't know, the Kickapoo is the world's crookedest river. It actually means those who go here and there. So this is our campsite where we were supposed to go. That orange flag in the top corner there is where we had to climb up to. And I know it looks like a nice angled incline up. It was like a straight face up, 5 or 6 feet. So we initially had planned, like we were gonna get here, we were gonna camp for 2 days, we were gonna come back down to the river and paddle out to the next bridge, and there's no way that I'm climbing back again down 5 or 6 feet. So we just ended up portaging our boats out to the vehicle. Yeah, there's no way we were going back down there. It's all sand too, so it's crumbling underneath us as we're trying to get to the top. Our last paddle of 2025 was Fish Lake in Dane County. So this lake has seen rising levels since the 1970s, and there's no natural outlet for it, so they finally evacuated a few homes in the early 2000s. I had been meaning to get out here for so long, but the weather was never cooperating with me. So we went in November of 2025. We were camping for Thanksgiving, and I think it was the 25th that we ended up going. It was really eerie, very, very cool. Seeing things, like the swing set that got left there, and the hammock, and the satellite dish, and the air conditioning that's all modern, and these houses are like completely decrepit and gone. It was so cool to do, very, very cool to do. And because we were there in November, we were in our dry suits. I highly recommend, if anybody has not watched somebody put on or take off a dry suit, it was very, very enjoyable. I think he's doing a great impression of Cornholio. It is so hilarious to watch. When we bought these and when we tried them on here at Canoecopia, we actually drew a crowd of people watching me do this.
I started with a Nikon camera because I enjoyed the color that I got from it. So I started with a Nikon Coolpix L830. It's just a point and shoot camera. Once I got more comfortable with that, I upgraded to a B700. Once I kind of outgrew that camera, I went and bought a DSLR, a Nikon D3400. Once I got comfortable with the interchangeable lenses, I was looking for a camera with better lighting, so I upgraded to a D5600. And then they started coming out with mirrorless cameras. I eventually bought a Nikon Z7. I currently shoot with a Nikon Z7 II. The Nikon Z7 II has better shooting for lower light.